In this video, I'll share my personal analysis of the recent events surrounding a Chinese-owned tanker passing through the Strait of Hormuz despite the U.S. naval blockade. This incident has raised questions about the effectiveness of the U.S. blockade and the ongoing geopolitical tensions involving Iran. Let's dive into the key points and explore the implications of this event. The United States has imposed a naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, which is a vital choke point for global oil shipments. This blockade is part of an effort to restrict Iran's access to crucial global shipping lanes. However, a recent incident involving a Chinese-owned tanker has sparked new debates about the effectiveness of this strategy. The tanker, Rich Starry, was reported to be carrying methanol and left the UAE's Sharjah port. It is linked to Iran and, despite the blockade, successfully transited through the Strait of Hormuz. This raises a critical question. How effective is the U.S. blockade, really? This tanker, which has been under U.S. sanctions since March 2023, has moved through an area that many thought would be heavily monitored. Effectiveness of the U.S. blockade. From my perspective, this incident shows that U.S. efforts to control shipping traffic in this region may not be as effective as they hoped. The fact that the Rich Starry tanker was able to pass through the strait without any challenge from the U.S. military raises concerns about U.S. enforcement. If a sanctioned vessel with links to Iran can get through, what does this mean for future enforcement? Is the blockade a successful strategy or just a symbolic gesture? Should the U.S. reconsider its tactics or risk losing control over critical routes? The dilemma for shippers. A major concern for shippers is the risk of dealing with Iran and passing through U.S.-controlled zones. Many shipping companies are hesitant to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, fearing that they will either be forced to cooperate with Iranian authorities or face legal actions from the U.S. There's a growing uncertainty, and many shippers are stuck between a rock and a hard place, unable to decide whether to take the risk of moving oil shipments or stay out of these politically charged waters. The current scenario is a double dilemma for global shipping, where economic pressures from both the U.S. and Iran create a difficult balancing act. How long can the global shipping industry withstand this uncertainty before it becomes unsustainable? The role of U.S. sanctions. The U.S. has imposed sanctions on vessels like the Rich Starry due to their ties with Iran. Yet we see Iranian-linked ships still actively transiting the region. The U.S. may be trying to force Iran into negotiations by choking off its oil exports, but Iran seems to have found ways around the sanctions, and this undermines the effectiveness of U.S. strategies. Will the sanctions imposed on vessels like this one push Iran to the negotiating table, or will they simply lead to more underground operations like the one we saw here? Impact on global oil trade. Looking at the broader impact on global oil trade, we know that the Strait of Hormuz is critical for global energy security, and with about 30% of the world's oil shipments passing through it. The U.S. is trying to force Iranian oil off the market, but Iran has been able to sidestep these measures by using shadow fleets, fake flags, and even cryptocurrency payments to keep oil flowing. But how sustainable is this situation? If vessels like the Rich Starry can continue to bypass sanctions, what does this mean for the future of global oil trade? Could we see a rise in shadow fleets? And how will the global economy adjust to these changes? Do you think the U.S. naval blockade is an effective strategy in controlling the flow of oil through the Strait of Hormuz? What are the potential consequences for shippers who choose to bypass the U.S. blockade and cooperate with Iran? In your opinion, should the U.S. increase its efforts to enforce sanctions, or should it seek other diplomatic solutions to address Iran's activities? How long do you think global shipping companies will be able to endure the ongoing uncertainty caused by the U.S. blockade and Iran's actions? What are your thoughts on the current situation? Should the U.S. revise its approach to the Strait of Hormuz? Leave your comments below, and let's discuss how these developments could change the landscape of global shipping and diplomacy. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe to stay updated with more in-depth analysis and insights on international events. This incident highlights the complexity of enforcing international sanctions in strategic shipping zones. As the situation continues to evolve, we'll have to see whether diplomatic pressure or economic sanctions will have a lasting impact on global shipping and the geopolitical landscape.